We are back once again, as always, every week. I am Matthew Bartlett, director of the Roost, joined by my good friend JP Heath, the voice of the Owls, rested up from a bye weekend. Did you have a good Saturday? Just hanging out?
I haven't told you the whole story. Wonderful college football day.
Absolutely.
Even watched a little of that team from College Station and a few dozen great endings. But the Rice House voice basically had no voice. So good Lord has some great timing. The massive allergy attack that hit me in between Houston and my commute up to the dad's near Dallas, I was thankful I got it out of the way then and not this week, but recovering, so any coughs are purely unintentional to get out of the way.
You sync that up well, just so you can plan for the future. Rice has one more bye week, so if you're going to get sick, plan that for, what is that, early November?
Yeah. And that's during
Other than
basketball
that,
season. So
never a dull moment. Absolutely.
never. Absolutely not. Bringing on a longtime friend and in the running still with David Crane of UAB for the number one golfer among broadcasters across America.
Ooh.
I'm just saying it is the great Andy Everett, host of the Andy Everett Show, 4 to 7 on Ticket 760 in San Antonio and iHeart. The ratings will spike, Matthew, coming up tomorrow when he has graciously allowed me to pollute his airwaves. How are we doing, good man?
Very well. Looking forward to another trip to Houston.
Yeah, it's been y'all's home away from home here recently. I was reading Kyle's notes. I mean, the vast majority of you guys are from Texas, but what, 29 from the greater Houston area. Give us the pulse of this season. I know not as many wins as you all have wanted probably at this time of the year, but getting used to some new pieces, but still some familiar names and faces. Give us the 90-second, 2 minute, or however long you want rundown of the season so far. Good man.
Well, the strength of the team is on the defensive line. Most of those players were all back from last year. There's a couple of new faces there. Linebackers are pretty good. The secondary was relatively brand new. Ken Robinson had played there a little bit. Zay Frazier had played there a little bit, but not a lot. And so they had to really work on that. But Zay Frazier got 2 picks in the East Carolina game, so that was good to see from him. Offensively, it's been a struggle, and I think it's very much like Jeff Traylor's first year here in 2020. Now, in 2020, he had the COVID stuff to deal with, and limited contact in the summer and fall camps, and they were trying to install an offense a week at a time, and Frank Harris was a sophomore in his 3rd year then, not his 7th. But you see some of the things that Owen McCown's doing that reminds you of what Frank did, both positively and negatively, back 4 years ago. And so that's kind of been the big thing with the offense. And the second thing is the offensive line was relatively brand new. They lost their starting center in training camp. The right guard's been pretty much playing at about 60% since training camp. The right tackle was new to begin the year. They got Mekhi Hart back, who hasn't played in 2 years, but he's still not 100%. And the left tackle is new, and the left guard used to be the left tackle. So they've had musical chairs on the offensive line, and they really haven't had 5 guys that have been able to play every game. I think the only huge surprise of the season so far was the blowout loss at Texas State. And I thought that would be a close game. With Texas State having everybody back, I thought that game would be closer than it was, that UTSA would have a chance to win, but they just couldn't ever get anything going offensively. And the defense, a lot of people blame a 39-point loss on the defense, but it was because the offense couldn't keep up. East Carolina was just a couple of, I think UTSA won 80% of 90% of the plays in that game, but there was 5 or 6 they didn't win, and that was the difference in the game. And so going into this game, UTSA's tried to get back to basically square one, hoping that some of those injuries they had after East Carolina healed up by Saturday, and that the offense continues to improve. And that's going to be the key in this game and every game going forward. If the offense can score in the 30s, I think they're going to be hard to beat. They have struggled to get to that mark in most of their games so far this year.
So what you're telling us, Andy, is that it's not just Frank Harris is no longer here, because I know that's going to be the overarching storyline from folks outside of San Antonio is, oh, Frank's gone, so it just doesn't work anymore. It's been a little bit beyond that. What are you kind of seeing from McCown and the quarterback play, and how does that kind of terse out as you see it?
Well, I definitely agree with that. It's not just Frank's not here, because I think Frank would have, now Frank may make a play or two or know where to check to or things like that Owen still is trying to learn. But Owen's dad played in the NFL for 17 years and did pretty well. And so I'm sure Owen's seen a lot of film where he's had to learn how to read defenses, and he'll figure that out. But guess who also has to read defenses? A wide receiver core. A lot of times the pass is an option route, and you've got to read the defense, and the quarterback has to read the same thing the wide receiver is. And if you don't, it's either going to be incomplete or possibly picked. And so that's a concern there. But yeah, I think it's the fact mainly that the Roadrunners have not had a really good running game, except for the one game against Houston Christian, which they should always have, being having the superior talent. If UTSA wants to run the ball, and I talk about this on my radio show all the time, is, and you look at the NFL in the last several weeks, the overwhelming majority of winners in the NFL, their teams led the game in rushing. And we're in this pass happy league where we talk about quarterback ratings and how many touchdown passes they throw. But when you can grind out the offense with the running game, you can control the game and control the clock. And that's what you back to. And that means the offensive line has to stick together. When you just have musical chairs on the offensive line, that's really difficult.
Just about the wide receiver game, with how obviously McCown's done some good things, but with the way McCoy is assimilated, McCoon, I know these are guys that have come back. People call me on the phone like, hey, I've got business to do here. How has he gel? I mean, the numbers are there, but how has McCown worked with those guys, and Carpenter, I guess, mixed in there too on the wide receiving game?
I think Devin is the most consistent of the wide receivers, but the opponent knows that. So they're sometimes doubling him, sometimes making sure that others have to beat you. I think Willie McCoy is a deep threat because he has such good speed. He can get past the defense. You have him as DeCorian Clark on your rosters. We call him JT. His middle name is John Thomas, and his mom calls him JT, so we're going to call him JT. Except according to JT, he only gets called DeCorian when his mom is mad at him. So JT has not played basically for 2 years. He had a devastating ACL injury at UAB in November of 2022. He did not play last year. He had to have a second surgery. He's finally kind of back to where he should have been a year ago. NFL prospect, probably would have been a second or third round pick had he left after the 2022 season healthy. And he's trying to get back to that level so he can get to the pros at some point. And he may even need another year. He still has one. He has a medical year next year if he wants to stay put. He is by far the most talented wide receiver UTSA has ever had, and he hasn't been able to play for 2 years. You're going to see Chris Carpenter. I think he's is continuing to improve and getting the route trees correct. The tight end position is huge here with Oscar Cardenas, but so is Houston Thomas and Patrick Overmeyer and a couple others in that group, Dan Dishman. So they're going to throw the ball to a lot of different people, and they have not been able to have David Amador play at all this year. He's been hurt all year long, and I'm not sure when he's coming back or if he's coming back, but I know Jeff Traylor has missed him on the field as well.
And one interesting wrinkle in this matchup is both teams on a bye week at the same time. I know Rice has a list of things that, over the 2 weeks they wanted to clean up. Is there any one or two thing that the coach's staff has addressed of this is what we really need to get fixed as we start to enter what's basically the second half?
Oh, the main thing is post-snap and pre-snap penalties. You can live with a pass interference call here and there because it's a judgment call, and video on some will show that you got away with things, and the video will show that you shouldn't have made the call. Hopefully that balances out. I don't think UTSA felt that it did. I think there was an interception early in the game where UTSA was up 13-3. The pass was grossly underthrown, and it was still called pass interference. But you have to live with that. But it's the false starts, and it's the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when your emotions get the best of you. And UTSA suffered greatly in the Kennesaw State game early. It was cleaned up a little bit against Texas State and Houston and Texas. The false starts crept back into the game against East Carolina, and they've got to fix that. First and 10 is hard. First and 15 and second and 16 is almost impossible in almost all of college and pro sports. So you're unless you're just a really good team against a really bad team, you can't make those mistakes. UTSA has been relatively turnover free the last few games. I don't think they're too overly concerned with that. They probably were earlier in the year. Defensively, they've had a takeaway in every game for, I think, going back to the fourth or fifth game last year, like 14 games or something like that now. So I think that's a good part there, but they have got to stop the pre-snap penalties.
Just about the defense, can't get my chart to come up here, but looking at, like Coach Bloomgren was telling me on his show a couple nights ago, y'all aren't going to dazzle us with dance. Like, you're going to play very aggressive, come at you. We're used to the very long-armed pass rushers from all sides, but Frazier there also in the corner. My gosh, you got the long Inspector Gadget arms there. Just the secondary and then kind of down towards the line. What's popped for you guys this year?
On the defensive line, UTSA has been blessed with a lot of depth in all the years that Jeff has been here. They rotate 9 guys. And when one guy gets hurt, they find somebody else to rotate in there. And you'll see probably 9, maybe 10 different bodies on the defensive line at one stage or another. I think the linebacking core is really solid. Martavius French and Jamal Liggett on the inside, and a combination of Jamori Simpson, Owen Peewee, and Danye Taylor on the edge. The safeties, Ken Robinson is, I think, he's the leader of the team. UTSA parted ways with the graduation of Rashad Wisdom, who led that group for so long. And last I checked, Rashad was on Tampa Bay's practice squad. So he's got an opportunity for the NFL down the road. And they were concerned earlier in the year about the defensive backfield, but it's gotten better. And the talent is there. It's just a matter of experience. But this is truly the strength of the team. But the strength of this team is predicated, I think, by how the offense plays. If you're going to be 3 and out with 3 passes, and you don't run any time off the clock, your defense is going to be on the field way too long and get gas. And if the offense can control the clock and get 5 and 6 minute drives, even if they don't score, obviously you want to, but at least you control the game and you prevent the other team from having scoring opportunities. So offensively is going to be the thing that we look at as to how well the defense plays, I think, every night. But the defense is pretty solid, and it is the strength of this team for now.
And you mentioned a bunch of guys up front. I'm interested to hear about Denver Harris and how the secondary is gelling in, because I know he's a guy you mentioned, very talented, has had a bit of a circuitous road to get to San Antonio. How is that kind of back end progress? And is it just a factor of, man, we played Texas and Texas State, and those are some pretty vaunted passing attacks? Where does it kind of set there?
Yeah, and I think both of those players, Denver Harris and Zay Frazier, really grew up in a hurry in the East Carolina game. Those were their best games. And Denver's not played at this stage, this level. He's got some growing up to do, and I think he's figured it out. He was guilty of a couple of pass interference or holding calls, and he didn't think he did it. And then they would show him the video and go, "Oh, I guess I did." They lost a really good safety. I don't know when he's coming back. Jimmy Wyrick is a transfer, and he's got a degree from Stanford, and a really smart kid that came in, but he got hurt in the Houston Christian game, and we haven't seen him since. I haven't had a chance to find out how much longer he's going to be out. But I think that the corners are going to get tested more and more, and I think they're up for the challenge now. So they're feeling more comfortable with what they have began.
And finally, wrapping up with Andy Everett here, I have the greatest respect. I know Coach Bloomgren, and I'm sure most of the Rice fans do, for what Coach Traylor's done, and you're pretty tight with him. You communicate with him a few times a week, of course, with our types of jobs. But what's the secret sauce this year that needs to be pushed, or the buttons, I guess, need to be pushed? And it's just such an iconic rise of Texas coaching, and kind of a second part of that, just what makes him so special?
I think the most special thing is he's an old coach, old soul coach. He'll call himself that. He does players. I'm going to promise you a jersey number. The 0 through 9 numbers are given out by team vote at the beginning of the year. He doesn't promise a position. He doesn't say, come here and you're going to start. And a lot of athletes right now want, when they're recruited, come in, you're going to start, you're going to get paid a whole bunch of money, and you're going to be here for as long as we can pay you. My biggest concern going forward with UTSA and Rice and pretty much everyone in the American Conference outside of Memphis, who has FedEx's money to be able to stave off those who come to try to steal players. I think that this entire conference is going to be, we have to be careful that they're not a farm system for the Power Four. UTSA had a player earlier in the summer that was offered a ton of money from from an ACC school, and he did not go to Miami. He stayed with Jeff for far less money because he loves the culture that Jeff Traylor built. And while we hope that there are more players like him, the reality is that there's going to be players who don't have NFL capabilities, that do not think that they're going to go play for a long time at the pro level, and the culture is nice, but can you pay the freight that is now required in college football? And I think that concerns him, and I'm sure it concerns Mike and all the other coaches in the American and the Sun Belt and the Mountain West and whatever's left of that, and the MAC and all the other non-Power Four conferences, because this is the first year that Jeff's been here since he got here where there's roster turnover, and it was mainly from graduation. In the time he's been here, UTSA has lost Cam Alexander to Oregon. They've lost Akari Franklin to Ole Miss and now at Illinois. And they lost Trey Moore to Texas. Of the players, and I'll say this loosely, the players that matter, the 60 players that are going to play every game. And they've cleaned up in the portal. They've gotten a lot of transfers to come to UTSA. And so I think the biggest thing is that there is an incredible culture here. I think people will run through a wall for Jeff Traylor, from a player all the way down to up to the president. They all believe in his vision and what he's built here. But we're entering into a new era of the game where it could be possible to have roster turnover year in and year out. Jeff Traylor's won everywhere he's been. And if he's allowed to develop teams going forward, I have no doubt that UTSA is going to be a perennial conference favorite in the American. The problem is going to be, can you sustain those wins and losses when you're constantly trying to rebuild your roster every year with players who've never played together? And they can be really good players, but they still have to play together and have the camaraderie and the trust in one another that comes with just game experience and reps. And I think that'll be the key for UTSA today, this weekend, next weekend, and 10 years from now. Is, can that landscape of college football protect those schools that are trying to develop players instead of those who are just trying to buy them?
Hey, thank you, good man. Appreciate you. Talk to you tomorrow when the ratings skyrocket when I come on your show. But see you very soon, okay?
Wait, see you then.
See you, man. That's what I do, Matthew. I'm a ratings booster.
Never a doubt. Never a doubt.
Just the numbers just skyrocket. But Andy's the best. He's very thorough. I've learned a lot of things about broadcasting and just hearing how he covers a team, always trying to learn. And he's one of those guys. You hear how thorough he is. And that's why we do this show. We talked about a couple years ago. And you and Taylor started it. Gives a lot of meat on the bone. And he's definitely up there with our favorite guest there. Any thoughts on what you heard?
I'm taking notes, man. This is why I come on the show, so all of y'all can make me smarter.
Yeah, right.
That's the only goal. I don't know. It's interesting to get some color because, like I mentioned at the top, like, no Frank Harris is like the overarching story of this team, but man, when you look past just that one generational player, like, there's so many other moving parts. And that's the thing that's been the hardest for me, is getting my head wrapped around who is this version of UTSA that Rice is playing. And as Mike Bloomgren said in his press conference on Tuesday, if Superman's not there, is this a game that Rice can win?
Yeah, but still some bones there. I mean, they're not. It's not a totally different skeleton, and they're obviously not dead. It's a little bit deceiving. I don't want Rice fans to come in here thinking, well, obviously number 0 is not there, Frank Harris. This kind of myth, especially against Rice. He seemed to have his best games against the Owls, but McCown can spin it. I mean, Daddy could play some ball, and the apple fell pretty close to the tree, or whatever metaphor I'm supposed to use there. He can spin it.
Rice's quarterback, his dad played in the NFL too. So
just a bit.
We got to cancel those out.
Yeah. But McCoy, I was looking at their SID is fantastic, Kyle Stevens and company, but kind of like the law firm. You got McCown throwing to and McCoy, and don't overlook Carpenter. And like Andy said, Clark is back there as well. But man, I don't know. I'm just kind of wandering here. Steer me in the right direction, wherever you want to go. But and we didn't even talk really about Barnes. He talked about them having trouble running the ball, but Barnes is East Texas tough from San Augustine. But this is a team you can't overlook, and especially what are we, 22 minutes in? They've won 8 straight against Rice. So if that's not motivation enough, if that's not motivation enough coming in, I don't know what you would need to get you motivated for a game, especially after the off week and after, my gosh, that heart-wrenching game against Charlotte too.
I was told we didn't have to speak about that. Well, I will say it's interesting, and one of the things I want to get your take on it is the bye week, because this is something that we don't think about it too much in broadcasting and calling that stuff is like the game, the rhythm of a game week. And on Monday we do this, on Tuesday we do this. There's never really a time in a normal week's cadence where you can say, okay, let me look at 5 games, pull up all the numbers, and let's actually change whether it's our structure of how we're calling plays, what we're doing on third down, what base alignment we're playing on offense or defense. Those are things that begin to be on the table during a bye week. So, not that they pay us for our opinions, the folks in the Brian Patterson Center, they are much smarter than us when it comes to X's and O's. But is there anything through kind of the first 5 weeks, if we were making our recommendations or things that we think Rice might want to tweak now that they've had the extra time, your wish list per se, is there anything that kind of stood out from the first 5 games that you're like, man, if they tweak this a little bit, if they can improve that, then I think, the high tide raises all ships, something to that degree.
Yeah, and I'm actually down here in Galveston, a little selfish plug there. So there was a tide. We had to move our beach chairs back when that tide comes up. You answer this all together, yes. All 3 stats come together for me. The red zone inefficiencies, Rice has really struggled. Looked it up. Of course, they give us reams and reams of stats, and you kind of tell stories and match what your eyeballs have seen too. But Owls are last in the conference and towards the bottom of the country in red zone offense. They're not punching it through. And they're not able to get it sustained on third downs, which leads to the time of possession being down. And when they want to run the ball the way they want to, they've had the great yards per carry, but they haven't been able to really get that consistent ground game. Charlotte, a lot better. Very, very good running game against Charlotte, or much better, but Owls are next to last in time of possession too. So you get some sustained drives. Now, other team practices too. What UTSA does really well on defense is hold teams on third down. Their pass defense isn't great, but they're top 20 in the country in third down defense. So to me, the first few games have all been about not being able to stay on the field. And then from here on out, it's like, how do you sustain some drives and get some things going? Because last game and a half, okay, you see a semblance of close to what we thought it would be on the offensive side. So getting it on third downs, but UTSA is so tough on third down defense. That's going to be, I'll spoil it right now. That's my key of the game. Nate and I will be talking about coming up a few days on Saturday.
Yeah, I like the points you hit on. And the thing that I keep coming back to that's so interesting is that, there's not really there's more time, but there's no wholesale changes. Like that, you can't just scrap everything and rebuild the offense, right? So if you're not doing a complete overhaul, you got to tweak where you can. And I think tweaking where you can is increasing the efficiency in those key areas. If you can get third downs and you can get points when you're close to the red zone or in the red zone, then you don't have a 1-point game. Yeah, man, that it should be that easy, right? But that's where Rice is at. They obviously, Captain Obvious, they need this one. It would be nice. Interesting thing with UTSA, Rice won the first 3. UTSA has won the last 8. Rice could start a new winning streak here and just keep that going. This has been, and who knows? I haven't looked at the schedule going past. UTSA has been on Rice's schedule forever, but with conference shifts, who knows how often they're going to get to play the Roadrunners every year. So it would be nice to start a new winning streak. Those are my thoughts, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, next year we'll be at the Alamo Dome.
I lost you. I see you.
Well, sorry. I promise I'm here somewhere.
I see you. I don't hear you. We don't know. We'll see if people hear me.
Testing. Is this thing on?
This is the oddest thing.
I made it 26 minutes. You have me?
That's all I got. I was gonna land the plane. Close us out from maybe you can hear me. That's the plan. Yeah, picture the outro music rocking here. We are, the bye week. You think we figured this technology out, but we haven't. We're still working through it. Thank you everyone, as always, for sticking with us. We do appreciate it. We like doing the show. We love interacting with you guys and gals. And, we will be back, rain or shine. I heard a cool front is coming through next week, so we'll get there. But we'll be on to talk a little bit UTSA, preview the games ahead. Thank you for tuning in. As always, Rice Fight.
Paradise, can you hear me? Is this thing on? Hello? Check. Mic check. Testing.